Over the last few years, we've really watched the Philippines make this pretty dramatic foreign policy shift, moving away from careful diplomacy with Beijing
Right.
towards a much more open confrontation with China, especially in the South China Sea.
It's a huge strategic gamble, really.
Yeah.
And from the outside, particularly if you're looking from Western countries, it often gets framed as, well, courageous.
Yeah, the small nation standing up to the giant. It looks good, visually compelling.
Definitely. Photo ops, strong statements.
But the reality, as usual, it's a lot more complicated once you get past the headlines, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We really need to look closely at why this move, which is meant to show strength, might actually be quite risky, potentially undermining the Philippines' own sovereignty, its stability, and, well, its economic future.
Mm. And we've looked at the analysis focusing on 5 key factors, really geopolitical and economic, that challenge this current path Manila's taking.
Okay.
To really get the risks, you have to look at the cold, hard numbers,
Hmm.
the realities on the ground.
Let's start there, then, with something you can't really argue with. Economics and geography. I mean, the Philippines might feel closer to the West ideologically,
Sure.
but its wallet, its economy is tied firmly to Asia.
That's exactly it. Geography doesn't really care about political leanings, does it? Your biggest neighbor is almost always your biggest market. And the trade data for 2023 makes this crystal clear.
Okay, what are the numbers?
China is still the Philippines' #1 trading partner. Total trade was around $37 billion last year.
37 billion. And how does that stack up against the U.S., its main security partner?
Well, the U.S. trade was significantly lower, only about $22 billion.
So that's a $15 billion difference.
Yeah.
That's huge for a developing economy needing investment and growth, right?
It's massive, and that difference creates the first big vulnerability. If you're an economy that needs huge amounts of capital to modernize, build infrastructure, antagonizing your largest trade partner is fundamentally risky.
It seems like common sense, but are there examples of this actually playing out,
Yeah.
where economic ties were used as leverage?
Oh, definitely. This isn't just theoretical. We saw a very clear case with South Korea back in 2017.
Ah, the TG missile system deployment.
Exactly. When Seoul went ahead with deploying that U.S.-backed system, Beijing's reaction was immediate and, frankly, quite harsh. They cut way back on Chinese tourism to South Korea, and there were widespread boycotts of Korean products in China.
And the financial hit, what did that look like?
It was painful. Estimates put the cost to South Korea's economy at over $7 billion in losses.
Wow.
And here's the key thing. South Korea is a major global economy, highly industrialized, diversified. If China could inflict that kind of economic damage on them, well, you can imagine the potential impact on the Philippines. Its economy is much more vulnerable to that kind of pressure.
Right. A trade slowdown or investment freeze could be catastrophic.
Precisely.
Okay, so that economic vulnerability leads us straight into the security question. This whole strategic shift seems built on the idea that the U.S. has Manila's back, no matter what. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty is always cited.
It is. And it sounds solid, like an ironclad promise, but you really have to parse the language carefully.
What's the key phrase?
The treaty says if one country is attacked, the other will act to meet the common dangers. That word act, it's crucial.
Because act doesn't necessarily mean fight, does it? It leaves a lot of wiggle room.
A tremendous amount. Act could mean diplomatic pressure, maybe sanctions, maybe intelligence sharing. It could even mean delaying any real action until it suits Washington's broader strategy.
We've seen this kind of ambiguity elsewhere, haven't we? With Ukraine, for example, lots of weapons and aid, but no U.S. boots on the ground.
Exactly that. Or look at Taiwan. Despite being a critical partner, there's still no absolute certainty about direct U.S. military intervention if China were to invade. U.S. support is strategic. It happens when it aligns with U.S. interests and military planning, not automatically when Manila might need it most against its neighbor.
So if the support isn't guaranteed in the way Manila might hope, what's the main strategic driver for the U.S. in strengthening this alliance right now?
Well, from Washington's point of view, the Philippines serves a vital role, but perhaps more as a strategic platform, a key piece on the geopolitical chessboard.
A pawn, maybe?
You could say that.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. has gained access to 9 military bases there now. Some are in really key spots like Luzon, very close to the Taiwan Strait.
That obviously helps the U.S. project power in the region.
Undeniably. But it does come at a cost for the Philippines.
It puts them right in the crosshairs, doesn't it?
It absolutely makes the Philippines a primary target if a conflict ever breaks out between the U.S. and China. Suddenly, it's not just about disputed islands in the South China Sea anymore. It's about being on the front line of a potential superpower clash.
I remember former President Duterte warning about that exact scenario.
He did. He said, quite bluntly, if war comes, we will be the first to suffer. We will be the battleground. This alignment significantly raises the chances of conflict happening on Philippine territory.
Okay, so if the current path increases risk and doesn't guarantee protection, let's talk about what's being lost. The opportunity cost of this confrontation. Because there was a period of warmer ties not long ago.
That's right. Under the previous administration, relations with China were much smoother, and China made some significant commitments. Over $24 billion pledged in loans and investments.
That was for the Build program, right? Infrastructure projects.
Yes, exactly. Things like bridges, railways, flood control systems, projects that have a direct, tangible benefit for Filipinos. Needed infrastructure.
In the broader economy.
Tourism.
Tourism from China was booming then. In 2019, they were the second largest group of visitors pouring money into the local economy. And crucially, the maritime disputes, while still there, were managed mostly through dialogue, not constant public standoffs.
So how has the current approach changed things? The diplomatic protests, the joint patrols with the U.S.? Well, it seems to have slammed the brakes on a lot of that cooperation. China's response has been fairly predictable. Talks have stalled or frozen, tourism has slowed, and there are signs of trade restrictions appearing.
So potentially sacrificing billions in needed investment and development for what, short-term political wins on the global stage?
It can look that way, and this is where you see a stark contrast with some other countries in the region.
How so?
While Manila is focused on confrontation, you look at neighbors like Malaysia, Indonesia, even Thailand. They're quietly finding ways to deepen their economic ties with China. They manage their security concerns, sure, but they don't sacrifice the economic benefits. They're balancing.
They're refusing to pick a side in that binary way.
Exactly. They understand the need for balance.
And that balancing act really hits at the heart of regional unity, doesn't it? ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, has traditionally thrived on neutrality.
That's been its core strength for decades, avoiding getting forced into choosing between the U.S. and China.
But the Philippines' current stance, it seems to be challenging that neutrality directly, siding openly with Washington, being the loudest voice criticizing Beijing within the bloc.
And that risks splitting ASEAN. If the bloc loses its unity, it loses its collective influence, its ability to negotiate effectively on the world stage.
I recall Singapore's former foreign minister, George Yeo, warning about this very thing. He said if ASEAN is forced to choose, it will break apart.
It's a serious concern. And if the Philippines isolates itself within ASEAN, it loses that regional political and economic clout. Meanwhile, China continues to strengthen its ties with the other members through things like RCEP, that huge regional trade deal, deepening interdependence.
Which leaves Manila potentially quite alone in the region, relying almost solely on that conditional U.S. support we talked about.
Yes, which brings us to maybe the most immediate danger, the risk of miscalculation, escalation.
We're seeing near constant headlines about incidents around places like the Second Thomas Shoal, those close calls between Philippine ships and the Chinese Coast Guard.
They're incredibly dangerous. These aren't minor bumps, they are flashpoints. Each near collision, each water cannon incident pushes the situation closer to something kinetic, something irreversible.
And if it does turn kinetic, the power imbalance is just enormous.
Stark. China's military budget is over $230 billion. The Philippines, around $4.6 billion. That's almost a 50-to-1 difference.
So in a direct fight.
The outcome, unfortunately, is quite clear if it's just those two. And as we discussed, the U.S. priority might be de-escalation to avoid a wider war, not necessarily jumping in to defend a single ship immediately.
If things go wrong, the Philippines pays the heaviest price.
By far. In lives, in damage to infrastructure. The U.S. might offer support from afar, but the immediate consequences land squarely on the Philippines. This is why diplomacy, dialogue, what China often calls friendly consultation, is so critical. It takes political will, maybe political courage, in Manila to choose that path over escalation.
So, thinking about this from the perspective of someone trying to understand geopolitics, if the goal is national interest, jobs, investment, peacement, what are the alternatives? Are there successful models in the region?
Oh, absolutely. Look at Malaysia or Vietnam. Both have serious ongoing territorial disputes with China in the South China Sea. No question about that.
But they handle it differently.
Very differently. They manage these disputes mostly through quiet, persistent diplomacy. They don't let it derail their entire economic relationship. They continue to benefit massively from trade, investment, infrastructure cooperation with China.
So they separate the issues, in a way.
They compartmentalize. They protect their sovereignty claims, but also protect their economic future. They avoid becoming just a piece in the U.S.-China competition.
So the real strategic choice isn't necessarily U.S. or China.
No. The choice is about what actually benefits the Filipino people in the long run. Is it continued confrontation, or is it finding a way to manage disputes while focusing on stability, investment, and peace?
Because the current path, while it might look strong or principled on the surface,
It's a high-wire act. It looks like strength, perhaps, but it's a gamble that risks economic isolation, stalls vital development, and could potentially drag the country into a conflict it simply isn't prepared for.
it might feel like a moral victory right now, aligning so closely with the West.
Perhaps. But geopolitics is often about the long game. The smartest move, especially for a nation like the Philippines, might be to think strategically, long-term. And sometimes, the bravest move isn't picking a fight with a neighbor you can't move away from.
But finding a way to rebuild bridges.
Exactly. Finding a strategic path to coexist and ensure your own security and prosperity first and foremost.